We're going to start with a shell, and then we're going to put the wire in here, and then we're going to be wrapping it around the mandrel. What size ring would you like?
7.5.
Okay, so when we hammer anything, it always spreads. So we need to start smaller. How small? That's the hard part. We never know, right? So I'm going to say, why don't we start with a whole size smaller? Let's start wrapping it around the 6. So we're going to put the shell down on the number 6. And you're going to split the little legs apart. And then you're going to try and get the shell as flat as you can against the surface of the mandrel, because that is where it's going to sit on your finger, and you don't want it like bouncing up. You want it to be as flat as possible. That's a little bit tricky. If you're feeling it shake, sometimes what I like to do is put a spacer behind the ball, because it could be the ball that's like, it's just a little bit too small. It just doesn't want to sit nicely. Okay. You're going to start wrapping the wire around the mandrel, and don't overlap the wires. So you see how he's doing it? He's not overlapping it. They're not going to crisscross. They're going to run parallel next to each other. You're doing perfect. So bring it around. And you want to go just a little bit past the shell. So one's going to be above the shell, one's going to be below the shell. And then we're going to aim that at the camera so they can see. Now, I want to turn it this way. You have some options at this point. You can spiral underneath the bottom of the shell a couple times to lock that wire in place. You can spiral a lot, so it creates almost like a base at the bottom. It depends how you feel, how much wire you have, because we still have to use whatever tail you have left to wrap along the sides, and that's going to really lock that wire down in place. So we're going to spiral under the shell, and then we're also going to lock down the sides. Then we're going to hammer it. Okay, so if you're doing it by yourself and you're like, oh, I can't hold it, that's when this comes in handy. Because when he starts to go to do the spiraling, you want to keep it tight. We're at maybe a 6.5, so you have to pull it tight outwards and then start the helicopter motion. Okay, so pull tight away from each other and then start the helicoptering motion. Stay low, perfect. And then try not to overlap them. You're building a spiral, so it's kind of like building a cinnamon roll. You don't want the wires to overlap. You want it to just get wider.
So you want to wrap it on itself.
Yes, on itself. And Shelby, if you can't see, we can take the ring off and bring it a little closer to you.
Okay. Oh, looks cool.
So what Uncle has to keep in mind is that wire is getting shorter and shorter, and you don't want to do it so much that you have no tails left, because you need that tail to wrap on the sides. You still got plenty.
Okay.
So he could go one more time. That's nice. The recipient can say, oh, I would like one more spiral, or you have any comments at this point, Miss Gail?
No comment, but maybe you should show them how the shell doesn't move around.
Oh, yeah. So this is the back side where the spiral is.
Oh.
Here's the formation of the ring, looking quite nice. Since it's doubled over, it's sturdier. And then we are going to hammer. And yeah, that shell is not moving. It is locked down in place. That's good. We're going to take this end and we're going to come through. Hey, I wonder if we should hammer first. I never thought about that, about hammering before we lock that down.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, why don't we try that today? Awesome. Always good to learn something different. Okay, so we're going to put this on here. We need to get to a 7. So right now it grew a little because when I was pulling it, I didn't pull super tight. So we're going to hammer this. We're going to be very careful not to go beyond 7 because she wants a 7.
7.5.
Oh, perfect. You can hammer a lot. So would you like texture or plain?
Texture.
Okay, so we'll start with the plain, tap it out, and then we're going to end with some texture on it. So this tapping is going to make the ring spread and grow. It's also going to harden it. That's called work hardening. Work hardening is where you're basically stirring up the molecules and stiffens the wire. This is the fun part. And I'll keep the number up for Uncle Rob so he can see that he's heading towards 7.5. So keep pushing the ring down a little so that as it grows, you can check its size. Now, what do you think is happening when he hammers like this on a graduated mandrel?
I don't know. What happened?
One side is getting bigger than the other.
Oh.
So this is the skinnier side of the mandrel. This is the bigger side. So Uncle Rob, being a great problem solver, is going to flip his ring.
Wow.
You never want to hammer the ball because you could potentially crack your shell. And you don't want to hammer any overlapped places. Overlapping wires, when you hammer it, the top wire can cut into the bottom wire and that'll weaken it and break your piece. So only hammer things that are not overlapped. Here's my texturing hammer. Do you like waffle or silk?
Silk.
Haha. So using the silk hammer is like using a rubber stamp. If you want a clean impression, you don't want to overlay the same one. You want to hit it once, the next to it hit it again, then the next to you want to hit it again. So it can be a little tricky on your first time out. So if you can't do that, just go for it. Go to town and hit it wherever you want. All right. Uncle Rob is going to take off the ring, flip it again to make sure that it's going to, equalize in size. And then we're going to check the size one last time, see if it's 7.5. If he wants to hit it a bit more times, he can. And then we're going to ask him to squeeze the ring and see if it's stable. We're using fine wire. Fine wire is almost pure silver. It is softer than sterling silver. So you want to make sure that this ring is not like collapsing. You want to make sure you hit it enough that it is hardened. Okay. So one thing that's going to happen next is when we wrap this wire onto the ring on the inside, the inner diameter is going to fill up and that ring's going to feel tighter. So we may have to hit it a bit more to make it fit. But because the band is thin, a lot of times people who want a specific size it can be a smaller size when this fills it in because it's a thin band. So we're going to wrap and then we're going to test the size again. So you want to wrap about 2.5 times into the ring. And then we're going to just wrap close, get them all lined up, straight up and down, pull tight, and 2 more times. So I like to end my wires on the inside of the ring. So when you wear it, it doesn't catch on your clothes or on your crocheted blouses. So we want to end with the wire on the inside. So we'll be cutting on the inside of that ring. We can use the yellow handled cutters on that side. Some people like to wrap a lot. I usually Gail, I do like 2.5, 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want to take away from the puka shell. Perfect. Now then wrap on the other side. Looking good. If you're a loose wrapper, I can show you how to tighten it up with your chain nose pliers. And see how carefully he's wrapping? He's making sure that the wraps are tight and aligned next to each other. So they're coming down, boom, boom, like this. Not crooked, not overlapping, just down, down, down. Take your time on this part because you're so close to finishing.
One more? More.
Let's see. Yep, so it's going to end on the inside, so you can bend it in, come down. Now, I'm going to cut one and you cut the other. So when we're cutting it, we're going to cut it flush side of the cutter, facing down. And then we're going to tighten it like this, a little at a time. You can almost burnish it with your tool, coming down like this, because we don't want to scrape you on the inside of the ring. So this is like a little burnishing movement. Go like that. If you feel it, burnish it more. If you don't feel it, you did a good job. Is this the first ring you're going to give your wife in years?
Yes.
Yeah, this is so cute.
This is a retirement ring, Gail. Cover that wire so it doesn't fly. Perfect. Clip. And one thing, when you use any kind of flush cutter, you saw how he was careful. He moved slowly, covered the wire. Please do that. If there's one thing that could make this a problem or cause injury, is when you clip a piece of wire and it flies out on the extruded end. So always be careful. So tightening it is almost like tightening a screw, yeah, where you can like pinch and twist and push down a little. Okay, put on her finger and let's see if it fits. Again, we did wrap, and that wrap is going to fill the inner diameter, so it might feel a little tight, but we can fix that.
Yep. A skosh tight.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hammer it just a little bit to size. If your wraps are really high, you can tap it a little. You can tap the wraps a little to compress it, but not a lot.
It became a 6.5.
Okay.
Now,
You want
are
a
we
small hammer?
hammering this way, or are we using a plastic hammer to hammer this way?
Uncle Rob, good question. If he hits it and angles down, he can get the ring to start spreading and getting bigger.
What happens if he uses the other one?
The metal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You distort your...
Oh. Auntie Gail's asking, what happens if you use the metal hammer to do that same motion he was doing with the nylon? If you use a metal hammer, it will
distort the pattern.
Oh, it's going to
texture.
distort all the textures he just put on there. And it's going to basically erase all the work he just did. So try not to overhit where you had your first texturing happening. I forgot about that. It getting bigger?
Slowly.
Okay. So a quick cheat is he just hits it with the pattern hammer.
Let's try first. Finger size, ring sizes change every time.
Oh.
Wow, can I? Oh, it's so pretty.
Now you're engaged again.
Oh.
Shelby, kiss.
Wrong hand.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you very much. My excellent student over here. The excellent recipient over here.
Would you like to be in camera?
No,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
have to be.
Here, put your hand in. Woo!
Woo, woo.
Oh, beautiful fingers. Beautiful
Thank you.
hand.
Thank you for joining us.